Welcome, golf fans, pursuers of knowledge in the almighty dollar. This is your golf guru bringing you the 2023 Sony Open. It's actually the 25th anniversary of this event being held there. And this is going to be my preview show of everything you need to know to get your bets out there early. So it's going to be kind of a focus on a betting show. And then tomorrow I will come out with my DFS picks. So you're going to get two shows this week. A little more. We got a full field event here. And we had a crazy kickoff to the season in Hawaii. So let's talk a little golf. Thanks for stopping by and give me about 30 minutes. And I want to get this out so that way there you guys can get the bets in because odds are already dropping on some of these guys. So I want to get this show out as fast as possible. All right, let's go talk some golf. So as I mentioned, of course, if you got the chance to watch yesterday, the Century Tournament of Champions, it looked like a foregone conclusion. It looked like Morikawa at times had a 7-shot lead, a 9-shot lead, and on that course, there's no way possible that you would ever think that he would not have won. It was kind of trying to figure out, if you're doing showdown finale, second, third, fourth, all that, who's going to have the big days. And of course, we saw what happened, and I'll get into the details of that. I'm sure, again, you probably have heard quite a bit, but I'll cover it for the folks that did not. But in short, what kind of shocked me the most was, I was not on Colin Morikawa. I'll be the first to say that, kind of watching his game last year, at least when we last saw him. The putting was such a fiasco. He was at that claw. He was trying things with, marking the ball that him and Hovland did, I think, back at Zurich. And I kind of mentioned this multiple times. His irons were a little bit off. But, man, the guy came out barnstorming. And then we find out that he actually hired a putting coach, changed his grip, and we all got to see for the first 3 days, it was like putting magic. Now, I always kind of feel like you get some guys slower greens with not a whole lot of movement on the ball. That the putting's going to go up where they're typically not that great a putter. Essentially, I think a little bit of what happened for Morikawa. Well, yeah, it was crazy, and we'll talk about what happened on Sunday. And then I just wanted to highlight to the right because I had some of you guys ask me, hey, what are you doing with Xander, right? So he pulled out of the Pro-Am, but we had no reason why he pulled out of the Pro-Am. At least I did not. I searched all over Twitter and everywhere, and nobody mentioned anything about a back. At that time, it was unknown. And so, I did not play him in Showdown, but I did put one entry in the large GPP with Xander. And then, of course, we all know that he did have a back issue. I was going to be curious to see what this is looking like. Maybe it's just a pulled muscle. Is it, back spasms? Is it, maybe a disc? I doubt it's on the latter. I mean, he played he played the first day and shot, I think, like 1 under or something like that. The next day, I think he played up to the 9th hole, and then I think he quit on the 9th hole. So if you did have a bit of Xander, which I think it was 6% ownership in the field for the large GPP, but, funny enough, there was people still on the second day of showdowns that were putting him in. I think like 18%. It was crazy, which, I feel bad for those guys. But anyways, let's talk about what happened at the Century Tournament of Champions on Sunday. And again, funny enough, I watched every minute of this coverage. I was excited to, get golf back, had a great field. Love, I live in Michigan, so it's not, sunny ever here right now, and it's cold. So when they're in Hawaii, I just sit there and wish that I was there. And so I watched every minute when Thursday, Friday, Saturday. But funny enough, Sunday came, of course, they had football. I had family stuff and literally got to watch none of it. Of course, I kept up with on my phone. And as I was watching things going on, I was like, wow, this is crazy. And I actually, I didn't put a ton of teams in the showdown finale, but I had one that was looking really good. If I'd had Cameron Young in there, just like missed by one player, I was off by 15 points to win the whole thing, but neither here or there. Colin was coming in with a 7-shot lead in the morning. And, on that course, all he had to do was shoot like 3 under, just birdie the par 5s, and he would have won the thing. But he ended up shooting 1 under a par. So, he shot 72 on a par 73, and you could see how it kind of just kept falling apart. And then I actually got to watch the coverage this morning before doing the show. And the short of it was, it looked like he had some bad chips, hit a couple of long iron shots, he wasn't making the putts he was making. And crazy enough, on Fantasy National, typically I give you guys the stroke gain kind of information. Well, I went on there today to find out, hey, what happened? I was guessing it was the putter more than anything. But for whatever reason, they weren't getting the stroke gain information on Sunday. They got it, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. But, on Saturday, after the round ended, he was gaining 6 strokes with the putter. So it was a little bit of everything. We could sit there and say, oh, it was Sunday, the pressure. But, I mean, it's Colin Morikawa. again, if this was, I don't know, pick like Mullinex or a Brim or one of the guys that haven't won a lot on tour, you could see this happening. But for a guy that's a two-time major championship, he's won a ton of tournaments. Yes, he didn't win last year, but it's going to be a blow to the psyche, I think. I mean, I'm not saying I'm never going to touch the guy again anytime soon, but it's going to be interesting how this affects him. But on the other side note, what we do know is, man, he was hitting his driver a little further. He's got a new driver. A lot of these guys were using new equipment, but we know he's got a good putting stroke now that he is confident with, and that's deadly. I've always stated to you guys, give me a great ball striker, and that putter flips where it's, positive 3-4 strokes, they're pretty much going to win a tournament. So that was it, of course. And then, Jon Rahm, good for him. I mean, Cam deserved to win last year, 34 under. Of course, Jon Rahm, as I mentioned in my preview show, shot 33 under and still lost the tournament. I did not see this coming, as in, why I was, of course, I bet him quite a bit in Showdown Finale because the guy on Sundays, especially if he's, charging, he's got nothing to lose, watch out. But, he had a pretty nice opening. I think what he shoots 7-8 under on Thursday, and then Friday did not look good at all. You could see the frustrations. I think he shot like 2 or 3 under, and then had a really good, pretty good Saturday, and then just went nuts on Sunday. I think ended up shooting 9-10 under. I think the next was, like I said, Cam Young, and then you had quite a few guys. It is the old, when you're in these tournaments, especially for Showdown, it's hard trying to figure out who are the guys like Max Homa that just went nuts on Saturday. Funny enough, Max didn't come out with a very good Thursday. Of course, he just had a child, so I was a little worried about that. And then on Friday, I played a ton of them, and he did okay. Not as great, but didn't play a whole lot of them on Saturday. He shanked a 3-wood on a par 5 that, he would have actually had a great chance to eagle, and that just kind of threw me off. And it was just a total quinky dink. I don't know if anybody saw this shot. Homa shocked me and had a great Saturday, Sunday. But yeah, so that's it. I mean, it was kind of a crazy kickoff to the season. As we all know, anything can happen on Sunday, but you look at that for more guys that are, maybe won once on tour, they're trying to win their first time on tour. Not from Akawa Morikawa, who's had as many wins as he's had. And then on a course that you can't really miss fairways, and the greens are huge. So for Kyle Morikawa, and I don't think he had a bogey until Sunday, if I remember correctly. Like Victor Hovland, I tweeted out on, I think it was Thursday, Friday, where he struggled with that Bermuda around the greens, just chunking it, just to kind of fall apart. So, all right, let's switch gears, and now we got to focus. I've always stated is that you go, yes, we're on still the Aloha swing, but you couldn't pick almost two totally different kind of courses. Now, scoring can still get in the 20 below here. There's tiny similarities, but this course always kind of tended to lean itself more towards the plotters and the good putters. But I, just like RBC Heritage, just kind of changed more and more. Like last year we saw at Matsuyama, if you can get the good ball strikers that have a good putting outing, that's the guys that are going to win. So that's your kind of quick over. But of course, we're going to Honolulu, so we're gonna jump from Maui over to Honolulu, the Big Island, and they're gonna be playing Wailea Country Club. And I already kind of mentioned that this tournament's been there since 1965. I believe, as I've seen, it's the 25th anniversary. And then you got the architect Seth Rayner, which I'm not sure if he was original or if this was a reno, why his name's on there, but either here or there. You've got a par 70, so totally different. We're kind of back to a very typical where you got the 4 par 3s. You only got 2 par 5s that both end on 9 and 18, and just a ton of par 4 play. And I kind of mentioned, there's still a bit of fairway out there, but what has been mentioned is some of the tougher fairways to hit on tour. It's Bermuda across the board, and the rough is grown out to 3 inches. So if you get off the beaten path here, you're going to have a little more struggle of hitting these greens. Also, I mentioned that rain came in, pretty much run around Christmas. So it was firm and fast, but then you could see at Kapalua where, again, it was a little softer and the guys were just torching that course, at least on Thursday. The winds kicked up on Friday. So I'm guessing, though, here it's going to be a little firmer. And then, of course, you got Bermuda greens. This is our first full player field. Of course, it's only really our second event to kick off the year, if you don't count the fall swing. But we're back to 144 players. So again, we're going to top 65 in ties. Historical cut line is somewhere between +2 and 3 under, and that's quite a wide swing. And you're probably asking, well, how is that possible? Well, if you look the year Cam Smith won back in 2020, there was a lot of wind. And so, of course, just like what we saw at Kapalua, really the only major defense. Now, this course I think has more defense than, of course, what we saw, but wind can definitely be a factor here. And then just some past winners, of course, are, you guys have been with me. I've talked about this tournament quite a bit because I had a lot of money, not a lot of money, but I had a bit of money. It would have been nice on Henley to win this thing. And again, not too far off what we just saw. I think if I remember right, Henley came in with somewhere around a 4 or 5 stroke lead, and just kind of stayed steady. Didn't play bad golf, but Hideki Matsuyama just went nuts, and then they got pushed to a playoff, and then of course he hit that crazy long par. Well, it was a par 5. Hit that crazy 3-wood to like 3 feet from, I think it was like 250, 260 if I remember correctly, and ended up winning the playoff. But they went 23 under both of them to go to that playoff. And then if you start to look at a lot of the past champions, like the Kevin Nas, you got the Kuchers, even Furyk, if I remember right, last year came out, and I think he almost led the tournament after day one, had a hole-in-one. Those were the guys that when you came here, you were looking for. But then, you got the Cam Smiths, you got the Matsuyamas, and I'm kind of leaning for this event that I'm going to be looking more again back at ball strikers and hope that the putter could flip. Was sprinkled in with some of the guys that are what we would think of as plotters. You got large greens again, so larger than average size, 7,100 square feet. And, I've got down pretty simple flat. I mean, of course, there's going to be some breaks. But what I do remember is that guys who have putted here well in the past and know these greens tend to have a little bit of advantage. Of course, Russ Henley won this as a rookie, and I knew that going into the previous. And so he's got a lot of history here. A lot of the guys that I kind of like, my Brokeback Mountain guy that I could not get off last couple of years, Patty Kazire, I believe is a past winner here, and typically shows up here. You got a lot of sand bunkers, 83, so that is going to come to play around the green. Shot making around the green is going to be more prevalent than what we just saw. You got 4 water hazards, and water comes in on 5 holes, and that's, if I remember correctly, like there's one main pond. Well, I think I got a map, maybe I don't, but I think I removed the map because it wasn't very good. But what I do remember is like one pond, but there's like these little rivers that run around here that you can get in trouble. And then the greens are going to run a little faster than what we just saw. The centimeter, I believe, at Kapalua was around 10, 10 and a half. What I've got from the course superintendent right now is they're running between 11 and 12. We already talked about the course defense. I mentioned what's a little different here is you got a lot of palm trees. So scrambling comes into play a little bit. Like I said, 50 acres of fairway, so not super tight, but you can get in trouble off the tees here. You'll see some views I've got. And what, has been stated here again, and I don't know what the proof of this is, but it is some of the tougher fairways to hit. I don't know if that's because it's firm and you have run out or just the eye line sites that are coming off the tee. And then some past notes. The par 5s here are eagle opportunities. Of course, I mentioned on 9th and 18th. That's where you really need to make your hay. If I remember right, I think it's 14, 15, 16. We'll look at the scorecard, but there is an area where you can get that consecutive birdie bonus. And I mentioned here's a bit of a putting contest. I think that still holds true. I also state here you want players that hit fairways, approach, putting. Yeah, we'll get into all of that. And then I just mentioned, past champions, that know these greens typically also keep showing up over and over and over. Even funny enough, Ryan Palmer's a past winner. He's in the field. He would fit in that. Well, was a really good ball striker. He kind of had a bad 2022 season. But could be an interesting, sneaky GPP play from a DFS standpoint. All right, I think that's enough on the course breakdown, and let's go start diving a little more into this. All right, so of course, as I mentioned, Wailea, and this just gives you a quick, I got a couple overhead views, and then, it doesn't tell you a ton. I mean, you can see there's some dog legs. You got way more trees and stuff that come into play. There's that kind of ocean, that runs into the river that's probably running down the mountains into the ocean. And then kind of another, view. And of course, what you're going to notice is we don't have that crazy elevations that you have to deal with. But again, you've got more windy kind of holes, more shot making holes. You got the pine trees, you got a lot of sand and good spots. And then just to give you kind of an idea of what a lot of these typical tee shots look like. Again, you've got some issues if you get off the beaten path with, the palm trees that could cause some issues. So we need guys that, best case, I'm going to, you kind of flip between driving distance and fairways. And what shows up in past is that driving accuracy is not a huge thing here, but I'm going to go with off the tee, which kind of combines distance with fairways. I was kind of back and forth. I think last year I looked at just fairways with distance. I've looked at just good drives, like what I would use at like a Colonial. But anyways, yeah, we'll kind of dive in all that when we get into the stroke game model. And so, funny enough, kind of not too far off from what we saw here at Kapalua. If we look down, Wailea fits in, and I think right now I don't have Sedgefield in my comparable models or Shriners, but it is showing that it's the fourth easiest course on the PGA Tour to hit the greens. But that's still doesn't tell you a ton. I mean, they're large greens. Just as I mentioned, not as large as Kapalua, but pretty large. But just kind of some information there, which means, again, you need to be a good putter. And then I threw this in. I think last year JT played here. Typically he does play here, but this year I forgot why. I just think the way his schedule worked out, he's not going to play the Sony. But he shot a 59 here, and I believe won. I think it was, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago now. All right, so let's take a look at his scorecard. Not too different than what we saw at Kapalua. The first couple holes that you're coming with, it's not a gentle handshake. 2 of the tougher holes. And then what I noticed, I think, was this right. It was 14, 15, 16 is where I've seen that consecutive birdie bonus. The hardest hole here is his par 4, 477. And as usual, it looks like you got 6 bogey opportunities, if you want to call it an opportunity, but you got 6 birdie opportunities, very similar. I mentioned 9 and 18 are the easiest holes. Of course, they're both par 5s, and that's typically where, they are going to do an eagle. You can see a pretty high percentage of an eagle on 9, and then not as much on 18, but, 9th hole looks like the easiest, of course, by far. I've got the recent scorecard for this upcoming event, and all the yardages are spot on. So everything's good there. But, I don't really see an advantage of getting guys teed off on, 10, because the wraparound, right, you're going 17, 1 and 2. And again, I'm talking about the consecutive birdie bonus. We always want to keep an eye on that if there's an advantage of taking guys for showdown off 10, but I don't see that at all. I'm not worried. So you can take guys off either side. It doesn't matter. Okay, so again, back to how I'm looking at this and what do I think guys need to win here from a stroke gain analysis ranking. Not too shocking, as most of the times we are looking guys with the best irons, going to give you the most birdies, opportunities, putting. Again, always trying to figure that out is a little difficult, but we can look at guys who tend to putt well here, putt well on Bermuda. Those are the top 2. As I mentioned, ball striking, Hideki Matsuyama showed that. You can look at Cam Smith, but like I said, you could also look at the guys that kind of plot their way around courses have also done well. So you can do it a couple different ways here. I am looking at off the tee. A little bit of scrambling, again, around the green, stand saves, all that does come into play. If you're interested in to know the 2 highest proximity to the pin, so this is where that ball striking comes into play. 150 to 175, 25%. The most approach shots come in at that distance. And then the next one's 175 to 200. So when you see that, you wouldn't think a par, 70 at like 7,000 yards would be a ball striking course. But these 2 statistics here really tell you that you need guys with solid irons. Hence, even, we'll talk about, but like Lucas Glover, great ball striker, horrific putter. Showed up here even last year and is a guy that I'm looking at again, kind of fitting that mold. And then you got 10 par 4s going between 400 to 500, so a lot of holes there. So I throw that in there. And then you got these long par 3s that do tend to be a defense of the course here too, what I remember. Hence Russ Henley, Hideki Matsuyama, like again, back to the guys with really strong irons at that higher distance. You're going to have to make birdies, as I mentioned, and unless the wind really gets up there, we're going to be looking at a low 20s. Unders. I actually nailed last week. I said, if you remember, I said I didn't think they'd get to the low 30s again. I thought it'd be like 27 under, 28 under. And again, if we could bet that, man, I wish I could, I don't know where, but somebody let me know if you can bet on what we think the end of the tournament scoring is, because I feel like I'm on that pretty good all the time. And then I already stated you got to make hay on the 2 par 5s. If you're interested in what did the past winners do here, of course, the recent was Cam Smith and Kevin Na. Were the previous, I shouldn't say recent, but before, of course, last year when we had the Matsuyama and the, of course, Russ Henley. You can kind of see the guys, just to get some names, Na, Kirk, Joaquin Neiman. So you've got, I would look at Chris Kirk and Na more, hitting the fairways, good irons, and if the putter flips, even Brendan Steele has got more of that distance, and Neiman, so kind of ball strikers. Webb Simpson, I think, is a great fit here if he was playing good golf, but he's been bad for like 2 years now. Brendan Steele shows up again, Webb again. So then like Kevin Kisner tells you something, right? That more on the plotter, really good putter, but hits a ton of fairways back when he was playing good golf. Graham McDowell, if you know anything, that fits right where with the Kevin Na, really good putter, good short game, hits it 280 center cut. And if the irons are firing, and then Ryan Palmer, though, I look at as more like back to, the ball striker that had a, good putting outing. So with all that said, if we just look at high over, what shows up over and over, you don't have to be a lead off the tee, as you see the top guys here. But what did typically show up was the irons. And then, of course, you can get it done with just a putter, as you see Cam Smith, quite a bit of what he did and when he won in 2020. And then Na, of course, in 2021, actually did the irons with a little bit of putter. And Kevin Na, I think I said Furyk. I think it was actually Kevin Na who was 9 under last year to kick the round off. And then I think he just fell back. He had one good round and then just kind of fell back to the pack. All right, and then let's go look at the most recent, so what happened last year? Kind of the same thing, right? I mean, this is very unique for Hideki Matsuyama to gain 7 strokes with a putter. Russ Henley has done it. I would say he's more consistent that can do it on Bermuda, but his irons were just en fuego. You can see Glover went nuts with the irons, and I remember watching him miss 2 or 3 footers. It just killed me. You're going to see Blackbeard, who you're going to see some of my guys, if you've been with me for a while, that show up. Adam Svensson had fell back but missed some short putts. So we're going to talk about him from a betting perspective. Corey Connors is actually like the prototypical guy here. Even like, it's too bad Aaron Wise isn't playing here. I think he would be a great fit for this course. Ryan Palmer shows up again. Funny enough, out of nowhere, Hong Tong Lee, Satoshi Kodair used to be one of my favorite first round bets back in 2021, 22. But anyways, again, irons and putter, this is the harder part, is trying to figure out, hey, who's going to, we know typically guys that are good putters on Bermuda, Russell Knox, one of the, I think a terrible putter, but can get it done, tee to green. All right. So that said, of course, as always, create a custom stat model for you guys. And you're going to notice here that I have the betting odds. Here it is, the betting show. This is pulling in DraftKings Sportsbook. So this was the odds I pulled in this morning. Some of these have already changed. I'll talk about the ones that I know off the top of my head, because that hints I mentioned guys that I bet as soon as I got up this morning. The odds have already started to fall off. The sports books, as soon as they start seeing money come in enough on some of these guys, they freak out and start turning the odds down. But anyways, with that said, the custom stat model, of course, a quarter of my model is going to be weighted on irons. That is very typical. Putting at 10, the ball striking actually turned up. So last year I had putting at 15, I had ball striking at 5, kind of, put a little more emphasis on the ball striking. Off the tee at 10%, and then there's those 2 proximity to the pins, which is technically adding 10 more percent to the approach. Around the green and sand saves, I got 15%. Those par 3s, again, a pretty good defense of this course. Ton of par 4s, and then just threw in birdies just to flush a little bit of that out. But of course, when I get into my picks, that's a little different, where we kind of focus even more on the birdie side to see when we have to, which is on this. With all that said, of course, you've got Tom Kim, who, I think, you just got to see a pretty good showing. It was one of my picks for last week at Kapalua. But I mean, perfect course fit for this guy, right? He won, we just looked at this, Shriners and Wyndham. Everything tells you that. And, so the books have got this correct. I think Cam Davis, not so much I would bet him outright, but an amazing, as we know, DraftKings GPP play, because a guy just typically outscores his pricing. Now, this field, of course, is nowhere near what we just had. So on the good news, this is a great betting field. Whenever you get this 144 and you only got, maybe 3 or 4, maybe 5 of the top 30 players in the world here, it really gives you some opportunities for some long shots to hit. And man, it'd be nice to get a long shot to kick this year off. I mean, we just had John Rahm, who went once Rory backed out of Kapalua. Of course, he was the number 1 favorite odds to go in. And I didn't bet Morikawa, but I think he was somewhere like 18-1. I'm guessing 12-1, something like that. It'd been nice for whoever had bets on him to hit that. I think my highest bet was Tom Kim that I had going in last. I had some more, got a little bit longer shots. You guys know me. That's typically where I put my money when I bet on golf. Occasionally, another pick of mine had a good showing at Kapalua. Brian Harmon, just been playing great golf, great fall swing, makes total sense. Great, tee to green. So he's right there at number 4. And again, this is all focused on, I apologize, on recent form. The last 6 tournaments they played, or 24 rounds. This is pulling in. You know what? Let's take a second. I'm going to go check something. Hold on. Okay, so what I wanted to do is just jump out real quick. I wanted to make sure that this was pulling in the Kapalua data because I mentioned there was an issue, at least when I was trying to pull up the fourth round history. But it did pull all 4 days of stroke gain, shot link data. So that is in there. Okay, so that's all I wanted to clarify. All right, so we were at, of course, Tom Hoagie had an amazing Sunday too. I think he shot 8-9 under. He really moved up the board. I don't think it was a guy that I picked last week if I remember correctly, but I think it's a great fit here. He is one of the best iron players. When you get into these like 150 to 175, 175, 200, is always showed up there. Sun JM was looking for a little more out of him. Ben Griffin is a hot pick and a hot bet right now. So Ben Taylor and Ben Griffin, funny enough, are very similar. They both had good showings at the RSM and also at the Houston Open. I think Ben Griffin might have hit third at RSM. I might be flipping these. I'm just going off memory. But both of those at 130 and 180, both gain. We'll look at the putting. You're going to see Ben Taylor actually leads this whole field in putting on Bermuda, at least the stats that we have. So I think those are very interesting. We'll get into that. Mark Hubbard, right-headed that amazing summer run. This would have been back like during the alternate tournaments, like the Barbasol, the Barracuda. He was on a tear, and then when the fall came, he kind of fell back. But his game fits this kind of track. He's a really good putter, makes total sense. Hayden Buckley, not super excited to play him, but Corey Connors, of course, always state his one win is on Bermuda greens at the Valero, and actually had a pretty decent Kapalua, nothing amazing. I mean, JJ Spawn, funny enough, one of the first bets I made when I got up this morning, I believe I got him at 45 to 1. Was him because I mean, watch what he did there, and now you're getting him on a track that's really more suited to his game. Where I felt like he was kind of punching over his weight class there, where he doesn't have the length, but man, that guy was hitting some amazing 3-wood shots in. He was putting crazy. Of course, he won at Valero too. Maybe there's some correlation there. I don't really see it because it's a longer par, I believe par 72, 7,400 yards Bermuda. But Bobby Shelton, and I call him Ricky Bobby Shelton, got his card back, had a good showing. I brought him up quite a bit from a showdown play. And then Siwoo Kim, we haven't seen him in a while, but good ball striker. Also kind of makes sense here, 40 to 1. So that's your guys' recent form. So all a little different here. We got some guys that just played Kapalua. We've got some guys that played a little bit in the fall swing. So we got to kind of take a little bit with this grain of salt. But if you got to see these guys play at Kapalua, probably makes you feel a little better from a betting perspective and even from a GPP. All right. So, of course, we do recent form. And the next thing we always want to know is how these guys done at this course specifically. So what's the history here at Sony at the Wailea Country Club? This is looking at the past 6 tournaments here. And of course, funny enough, Matt Kuchar, which I told you, like, there's your prototypical guy that you used to always want to play here. Keeps it in the fairway. He's going to get, needs to get hot with a putter and plots his way around. Funny enough, James Hahn, that's kind of a shocker for me. And I didn't dive into the details into this. Every time I think of James Hahn, he showed up right at the Waste Management. The last time he really had a chance to win. He also showed up, man, I can't think of the last tournament. I'd have to go through his history, but he did show up in 2022, had a little bit of a run there, but not for me. I mean, you want to talk about terrible putters. Woo! I mean, when he turns it on, I shouldn't say that because, like I said, he kind of falls into that Griot, Glover, Ryan Palmer kind of bucket, even Hideki. So yeah, I mean, could be an interesting bet. I didn't bet him, but Keith Mitchell, funny enough, does show up here. And he's done this where courses that for me, I don't think Keith Mitchell makes sense, right? I mean, he's almost like a Johnny Vegas, right? He just bombs the ball off the tee, but he can get hot with the irons. And if the putter goes, away he goes. Webb Simpson, again, until Webb shows me, it's just been like a year and a half, 2 years of bag off. But, the Webb Simpson 2020 beforehand, this was a perfect fit for him against like a Matt Kuchar. Kind of crazy. I mean, I don't know. I guess it's not bad odds for Webb. So who knows? Maybe he got something figured out. Of course, he was dealing with some neck issues, stuff like that. Zach Johnson, Ches Reavie. Those are the guys, past history that makes total sense. Corey Connors, Knox. I mentioned my Brokeback buddy, Patty Kazire. Gary Woodland had that little run there at the Honda last year. So, of course, Bermuda, but then kind of fell apart. Not fell apart, but just really didn't show that same form that he kind of started the year off last year. Kyle Stanley, I saw this, I was just blown away. I have no idea how this guy still got his card. Very interesting to me. Of course, Griot, we'll talk about him. You guys already know, typically a guy, more of a kind of FOMO bet, but makes total sense. I like him here. You got Brian Stewart. We haven't talked about this guy in a little while, but of course, my Central Michigan guy. And then Chris Kirk. Last time I was really hot on him was the RSM, and I believe he went and missed the cut. I don't even know that was this recent one, but I think it was the previous year. And then I forgot to pull this up last time, but I did it for this one. Is looking over the past 5 tournaments here, who's gained the most strokes total, and then also you can see their finishing spots here. So funny enough, Corey Connors number 1. He set an 11th, a 12th, a 3rd, a 39th. Hideki had a good showing here. Of course, he won last year. Before that, though, not bad. A T19, a 12th, but nothing that would have just said I had to play Hideki. I mean, of course, the field last year wasn't that great, but I'm saying that he would win outright. My buddy Patty Kazire, I'm interested in. Of course, he had the win back here in 2018. There's Webb. You can see last year, a T61. Kuchar had a couple missed cuts, but won back in 2019, then a 7th. Killer Keith, there you go, a 7th from a missed cut, but pretty good showings. I mean, you can just kind of see the different ones. Matt, Brian Stewart, it makes sense. I mean, he's typically the plotter. And also, I think the field here, I think the golfer itself, the quality of golfer that's in the PGA has just gotten stronger. So, when you see some of these, like the Brian Stewarts, back here, yes, they were probably playing a little better golf, but I also think the field has just gotten so much better. You got Knox, Stewart Cink, Ryan Palmer could be interesting. I mean, again, if you're going with that pure ball strike and hope the putter goes. Keegan Bradley, not the greatest showing at Kapalua as far as I'm concerned. Brendan Steele, and then Russ Henley, I threw in there again because, again, he's a past winner here. It's not going to show up here, but he has a win here, and then had to, should have won last year. And as you saw, I had him on the cover. And of course, literally my first bet that I put on was him, and I got him at 45-1. I think those odds have already fallen a little bit. All right, now if you're curious who are the best putters, because this is one thing, I mean, you can see I showed you in past winners. I think that wasn't Kevin, who was it? What was before that? Cam Smith, who did it all pretty much with the putter. You got Ben Taylor, who I mentioned. I'm pretty excited. I already put a bet on him. And leads this field over the past 36, rounds on Bermuda or 9 events. I got Troy Merritt, who, funny enough, I always think of better on bent, but it could be an interesting bet. I didn't really go to him. Like the last time I remember that he had a chance to win was the playoff that went down at the Rocket Mortgage, of course, with Cam Davis, who ended up winning that thing. Of course, chipped in for Eagle to even get in there. Brendan Todd, funny enough, was at 90-1 this morning, and you can see the odds already at 80-1, so that's starting to fall back because literally, again, if you're going with the plotters, here's your prototypical guy you would want to bet on, right? I mean, hits, every fairway, hits the greens, and it has had really, really good runs on Bermuda. Last time I think that Brendan Todd showed up was at the PGA Championship, if I remember correctly. Kind of showed up, and it was at Southern Hills. I think he had a good showing there. Kelly Kraft, another guy, I have no clue how he has his card. Adam Long, was one of my long shots. Funny enough, last year I bet him again this year here. I kind of went over this last year where he does really well in these kind of island swings. He's done well at Mayakoba, some of these kind of places, but had kind of a rough fall. I think he missed last few cuts. So, that was then, but I don't know. Harry Hall, funny enough, always shows up putting on Bermuda, and he didn't have a bad outing somewhere in the fall, I remember. Wawrinski was one of my, always crazy 1001. I don't even know that's still actually, but this is a course, funny enough, that he could compete on. Mad McNeely, great ball striker. I always, again, a little bit because he's a West Coast kid, I always think of him at like Pebble Beach, and anytime I get him on POA. Mac Hughes was one of my picks, and I think he was second place after day one. Morikawa came out 9 under. I think he shot 8 under. So for a little bit there it wasn't good, but he had him 80-1 there. He's 60-1 here. I kind of mentioned he's always been kind of my Cam Smith light. I always felt like very kind of similar games. Taylor Montgomery, came off the Korn Ferry Tour last year, just lit it on fire. I mean, the guy did it so much with the putter. He's got crazy distance, but can get wayward. The irons can be a little suspicious. You got, one of the better putters, at least last year on tour and the year before, Denny McCarthy. Yeah, Stefan Jaeger, who lit up on a Corn Ferry. Really, the results didn't transfer over to the PGA as far as I'm concerned. Now, really, if I remember right, showed up on like Sundays. So if you're thinking of a showdown finale play and Stefan Jaeger makes the cut, he's always a good play for a showdown finale on Sundays. You got Matty Kuchar, I've already stated, who's done very well here, kind of fits that. Chesson Hadley. You got Andrew Putnam, had a nice fall, had some shots to win. Trying to remember the tournaments now, but they all kind of blend together. And then Sam Ryder, I'll already let you know I did throw a bet on this. Right, also had a really nice fall, showing up with the putter, and that guy can get crazy with the irons. Not crazy long off the tee, but again a fun showdown player. And then also I just remember him with that Waste Management last year, that hole in one that he had. I think he was the first hole in one, and then I think Carlos Ortiz, if I remember right. I think he was not on the Live Tour yet. I think had a hole in one that day too. And then we move to, of course, very interesting always, who is the best with the irons over the last 24 rounds. Now, again, this data you got to remember is going to be a little all over the board, right? Like, Russ Knox, I don't think we've seen in a while. Hubbard, some of the fall swing stuff. I mean, again, we just saw Hoagie. We got to see Tom Kim. Corey Connors, we got to see Steele. It's been a little bit. James Hahn. Harmon's been, out of all the guys that I think has played some of the best golf, from Kapalua and also in the fall swing without a win, would be Brian Harman. That Ben Griffin shows up again. I think that's going to get bet down. So, if you're interested, that Ben Taylor, Ben Griffin, I think are going to be the ones that a lot of money are going to come in on. Again, I think there is the ability to have a long shot hit here. You got Siwoo, just one of the better ball strikers. The putter has picked up here, recently, and a really good short game. I mean, kind of like Hideki Matsuyama. For Siwoo Kim, we forget, that he does have a pretty good short game. It was always the putter that kind of held him back. There's my Russ Henley, Chesson Hadley, David Lipsky, Michael Kim, and then Cam Davis. Again, for me, watch will go out and win this thing, but I'm just more of a DFS. I'm not betting Cam Davis. And then you're going to notice on the count courses, I'm going to probably add in. So when I go to do my DFS picks, I might add in like the Wyndham. I'm still kind of figuring out. There's one or two more that I want to add in, but right now I wanted to keep it very honed. And this has kind of shifted. You're going to kind of see again more of kind of the plotter courses. So you got Colonial, TPC Southwind, RSM, and RBC Heritage, where you got some tree lined. You got the par 70, 71. You got the Bermuda. Really focused, and then of course Wailea thrown in there. But like I've stated, like RBC Heritage used to be a very kind of plotter, didn't have to hit it long, but then we saw last year the Cam Youngs, the Cam Davises, like the best ball strikers go out and really compete at RBC Heritage. And a little bit, I do blame the hurricanes that came through. It took some of the trees down. But, if you have distance with length, that's always going to trump guys that have, very, accurate, but only hit at 270, 280. So, there you go. With that all said, if I look at the past 24 rounds, 6 tournaments on these courses with these guys against my model, number one, funny enough, Hideki comes up, that's just crazy to me. But Russ Henley, so you got, it shows that these courses are definitely pulling because that's your past two guys that had a chance to win last year. Well, Hideki won, Henley's won previously, but that were in the playoff. Lucas Glover, I think, ended up in 5th place last year. Svensson is 7th. Patty Kazire, past champion here. So this, comparable courses here really is flushing out the guys. Corey Connors had a great showings here. Jordan Spieth, of course, won RBC last year. Tom Kim, I think, is a great fit. Griot. Eric Barnes, of course, it's only 3 rounds, and same with Tom Kim. But, Tom Kim is like off the board is, a great, 12-1. There's a reason why. Vegas is smart. I agree 100%. He's probably going to be the number one most expensive player on Draftkings. I haven't even looked at that yet. Then again, Cam Davis, Sungjae M, Palmer. I think if you want to take a long shot, I think that'd be a good bet. And then Webb Simpson, again, I've always stated this. We're just waiting for Webb to be Webb, right? The putters really held him back. The ball striking hasn't been terrible, but it's not where he used to hit like the hybrids and the 3-woods and the long irons, like just amazing. Like Webb has always been, not long off the tee, but very accurate. Well, he started to get wayward with the driver, even with his hybrids, and the high irons was not as accurate. But really, if I had to tell you the one thing I think that has hurt him the most is he's just not putting the way he used to putt, or make the putts he used to make. So not too far off from Jordan Spieth at times. All right, so with all that said, let's talk about my betting card so you guys can get out there and make your bets if you've not done it already. If you want to, you get to use this information, but if you want to jump on some of these, feel free. So not so much worried about, where these guys rank against my model, but you'll see Tom Kim, number one ranking against my model. That makes total sense. He's 12 to 1. Maybe it's that drop to 10 to 1, but I don't think you have to worry about that. I would say more of these like 130s, like some of these have already dropped. I got Hubbard. I think it stayed at 130. Russ Henley, I mentioned, I got him, I want to say 20, maybe it was even higher. Let me look at this real quick. Hold on a second. Okay, so anyways, it wasn't, I thought it was higher than that. So this morning, Russ Henley was at 25 to 1. And you could probably still go check out, what is it, Odds Checker and Points Bet. Go check some of the other places if you have accounts other places. But right now, DraftKings Sportsbooks has got him at 22 to 1. It was 25 to 1. Grillo, I think I got him at 50 to 1. So just a few points there. Ben Griffin 130, JJ Spawn was 45 to 1. Sam Ryder, I think that's a nice, really attractive long shot. Adam Long, almost like Ryder better. But again, a lot of these, I again, just so you guys know, I'm not, $5 here, $10 there on some of these long shots. Brendan Todd's already dropped 10 points. He was 90 to 1. Smell the Glove Glover, 200 to 1. I like that. This Ben Taylor, I think, is kind of sneaky. So, yeah, 181. That's still holding, I believe. Scott Piercy, this is kind of a funny one. I don't ever bet Scott Piercy, but this is one of the kind of goofy tournaments that Scott Piercy out of nowhere will show up. I believe it was, the 3M Open where he had a chance to win and then just literally fell apart on Sunday. So it hasn't been that long ago that Scott Piercy has had a chance. But, funny enough, he is a past champion, past winner on the PGA Tour. I've stated the guy will show up. Trying to see here, just looking at his last, what he's done. I mean, those, you can see around the green, procs to the pins, the putter, that's probably the main thing that flips. Adams Finson is the one that is dropping like a freight train. So for whatever reason, Adams Finson opened up at 90 to 1, and I got him at that. You're seeing there 75 to 1. I mean, this could drop to 50 to 1 because I don't know what the books were doing, but he, wasn't bad at Kapalua. I think, Friday? Didn't have the greatest outing, but other than that, he'd play well. The guy had a chance to win here last year. The putter kind of hurt him. The putter has been better, and we just saw he had a really good putting outings. Even at Kapalua, I think it was the Friday, the putter did not work as well. But I think, again, if you can get him higher, but 75 to 1, I think is still good. Tyler Duncan, showed up here last year. Shows up, typically I like him for a round one leader. He just has a hard time putting 4 days together, but at 300 to 1, threw a couple, then of course, I've got to. This is all purely. I also believe I think I threw a couple dollars on Blackbeard, which I did not click on here. But the same thing with Petty Kazire. So Blackbeard, which is Michael Thompson, I believe he's 200 to 1, something like that. And then Petty Kazire, of course, past champion here. And who knows? Why not? I think we have a field here that does allow for a long shot. Now, is that going to happen? We'll see. But yeah, so that's my betting card. I wanted to get this show out. I will do my DraftKings and picks, all that, give you the analysis on these players. But I wanted to get this out because already, as I mentioned, odds were dropping fast. And that's it, guys. That is going to be my preview show for you. Get my betting stuff out there. Get this out to you fast. I'm going to get it loaded up and get it on YouTube. As always, hey, for some odd reason, if you're checking me out for the first time, will you do me the honor? Click that like button, subscribe. I put out now on average 2 to 3 shows when we get into the main season, the Masters and all that. But right now, hey, you're going to get 2 shows this week. And, let's have a little better start. Honestly, if you want a little feedback from me on what just happened at Tournament of Champions, I mean, that's a very tough tournament where we had 38 guys after all said and done. You had Xander pull out. From a DFS perspective, not the greatest for me. Some of my guys, I mean, I think I was leaning on Cantlay a little more at the upper area. But yeah, I mean, Rahm, of course, I told you guys to play, but I was trying to get a little unique. But yeah, from a DFS perspective, I did well on Showdown. Not so great the larger GPPs. You really, of course, had to nail that when you have 38 guys, right? So, but hey, excited. And for some reason, it's funny. It looks like Scotty Scheffler. I don't know if that's him, but the way that foot action looks, it looks like a little Scotty Scheffler there. Well, there's Snedeker. Yeah, I can't tell if that's Scheffler or not there. All right, guys. I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Get those bets in if you are going to bet. And I will talk to you guys for the picks show tomorrow.